You leave for a couple days, and Xbox implodes.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's actually going to get worse.
Oh, it is. I can. Yes.
So this is not good. Obviously, I said something like this yesterday on Windows Weekly, but like I get it. You spend 68 billion bucks or whatever. It's going to be some consolidation. Taking a hard look at the business, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, you can't do this like every 2 weeks. Like
No.
you like just figure it out and go forward with the army you have or whatever. Like
Yeah.
it's a little much.
Yeah. The worst thing you can do for morale is exactly what you just said. Every few
Mm-hmm.
weeks, like, okay, it was early January, it was like 1,900 people got let go.
You're
This
like,
week, it
okay,
was like 3 studios got shut down.
yep, there's more to come.
Yeah. The
Apparently.
credit card has been put away, and they've brought out the blade. And,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, it's not. I don't know. It's just it's not helping morale. And
It's not helping their bottom line either.
yeah,
They
right,
spent $70 billion to make a few percentage points last quarter, which only came from their acquisition. And
right.
if you do the math on that to recover
No, I
that
did do the
cost
math
of
on it.
investment,
Yeah, no, I did the math on this 6 months before they got it. Like and it's exactly what I kind of says. It's roughly 2 billion a quarter in
mm-hmm.
revenues. Like, I mean, for a company that makes as much money as Microsoft, like you said, it's just a couple of points. Like it doesn't turn the business around. Unless of course your goal is to never sell hardware again. But the problem there is you start moving in that direction, which I think is the logical end game here. You're going to lose fans. A lot of people,
Yeah.
people just can't get over this, like this notion that Xbox is not a console and it's just like this broader ecosystem, and it's
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. People have really bought into this.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know if you saw this. Apparently, they're not 100% clear if they want to put like Call of Duty
Oh, yeah.
on Game Pass. This is going to sound like more of a threat than I intended to, but I will buy a frickin' PlayStation. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Like that's what?
Yeah. Well, I interpret that to mean whatever the new release will be.
No, I do
Not
too.
the back catalog, but
No,
yes.
of course, of course. But day and date, the promise was very explicit. Every game, in-house studio, first party game, day and date, Game Pass. And you and I have talked about this on air. I mean, about does that even make any sense? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that game makes whatever billions, in the first couple of weeks every year. What would they lose by putting it on Game Pass? They would lose hundreds of millions of dollars is what they would lose. So it's an understandable decision, but this isn't like a new thing. Like you knew this. Like we went into this knowing this, right? This is not new information. I
Somebody
don't
should
know.
make the meme. Because a lot of people, like, there's a lot of Xbox fans who are like genuinely like upset about this, which is fine.
Right.
I mean, that's fine, right? I'm not
Mhm.
saying there's anything wrong with that. It should be the meme where there's the two guys with nooses around their necks, and it says first time, but the other guy should be a Zune or a Band or a Windows Media Center, and it's like Microsoft just kicking the thing you love. Yeah, it happens. That's what they're good
It
at.
is it's a tough thing.
It is.
I you have to almost remind yourself that Microsoft is not unique in this regard. This happens around the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Google is infamous for killing products, even though I'm not sure Microsoft isn't just as bad, but whatever. But yeah, I mean, we feel the Microsoft stuff more because that's what we focus on. Like that's where we came from. Like, so I don't know, boy, it's tough.
It is, and it's not over. Microsoft, I believe, is making look. Their fiscal year ends in like
Yeah, month and a
60
half.
days, something like that.
Yeah, not
Something
even.
like
Yeah.
somewhere around that new fiscal year. There's always shuffling of the deck when a new year starts.
This
And
is a lot of shuffling before then, though,
yes, that is
right?
the slightly concerning part that there will be
Um,
continued shuffling in roughly the July timeframe.
yeah, like I said, you spent that much money. You now have top heavy staff in this part of the company. Obviously, there's going to be consolidation, and that is going to result in job losses.
Yeah.
This is not a maybe. It's it happened. It was always going to happen, but God,
Yeah. Anybody who thought Microsoft was buying up studios to protect some sort of game industry, you're learning very quickly that that's not who they are.
well, I mean,
I mean, they're a business. At the end of the day,
Yeah, that
Phil
okay.
Spencer said, "I need." I mean, you put the math together between Bethesda and Activision. That's
You know,
$75 billion. That's rounding down. It's like 76 something
you're
billion just
talking in
between two
acquisition fees, you
acquisitions.
mean? Yeah, but this is a this business makes sense as a software business, if you will, like a
Well, let me ask you this, Paul. Does it?
does it? Yeah. Uh, let me rephrase.
Hmm.
This business makes more sense as a software business than it does as a hardware business. Is it actually viable? I don't know. I guess you'd have to look at like at what point does you can't look at it this way. It's complicated. So you could do this 10-year outlook and say, okay, in 10 years, these studios are going to generate X amount of billions of whatever.
Hmm.
And then we spent whatever you said, 75, whatever the number was, billion. Does that add up? But that's not the cost, right? There's an ongoing cost of the employees, the infrastructure, the development, this life insurance,
Hmm.
medical insurance. I mean, the whole thing. So does it ever make sense? That's good. That's an open question, right? I don't know. Um,
It's We know it's expensive to make the games that people are
mhm.
effectively demanding, which isn't viable, right? It makes sense to spend $300 million on a Call of Duty title because they absolutely have a model that they know they'll make at least $1 billion. That makes sense. But when you're
Yeah.
trying to spin up a new IP and to dump a whole bunch of money into it, it no longer makes sense. And there was a Matt Booty statement says we need to focus on smaller games, and that's yeah.
Yeah. No, so two things to this. I mean, there are multiple now examples of Call of Duty games not making sense, right? There have been many failures, many forks in the road where they went in the wrong direction, had to kind of step back. And we see the constant repetition of the couple of things that are super successful for them. We're going to see it again this fall, right? With the new Black Ops game. So, okay, that's a problem. You've got Nintendo over here that's about to break their own record for the
Hmm.
best selling hardware they've ever made. But if you look at like from a dollar amount, Nintendo has on one hand established a very solid ongoing business, persistent, whatever, but it's also much smaller dollar wise, right? I mean, it's not Nintendo doesn't generate the income or the revenues that like a Sony or Microsoft or Xbox does, whatever. So yeah, I mean, there is a place in the world for smaller, less expensive games that also sell well and are also profitable.
Hmm.
Microsoft cannot escape the AAA thing though. Like you can't,
Right.
is there a happy middle ground between like indie games and Call of Duty? Yeah, I think actually yes. And I think Nintendo kind of proves that. But is there some version of this world where Microsoft makes like Nintendo type games? I mean, there's no way.
Here's the other thing. Microsoft is a massive company. We know that. If they're looking at their portfolio and they say this studio is going to make a game, we expect, let's just say we know for an absolute fact, it's going to make us $10 million. We're going to invest 8 and it's going to make us 10.
Yeah, it
Microsoft
doesn't
would
even
kill
make
that in a
sense.
minute. $2 million bottom line to Microsoft, that's
No.
they do not care about that.
Yeah, this is the downside to big, you know.
Hmm.
Um, some of the best games I've ever played, literally, are these tiny. They're basically indie games, right? Inside, Firewatch, titles like that. It was made by a very small team of people. In some cases, some of them like Super Meat Boy, like made by a guy. I think. Oh no, that was probably a team. There was probably a team there. I'm sorry, but small teams, right? Inexpensive, bootstrap kind of stuff. Like you're never going to see that. Like,
Hmm.
especially now that Xbox has become so big. You know, it's they've almost boxed themselves into a corner here. It's kind of strange.
Right. They've boxed themselves into an expensive corner because they paid a
Oh,
lot of money for a lot of studios, and if those studios aren't going to generate returns that are
they're going to aggressive
equivalent to the
tax them, yeah.
investment put into it,
Right. I
things
know.
get things get rocky.
I think these things lose identity too.
Oh,
You
I would
you've
agree.
got multiple layers of owners, right? Like think about something like id Software, which used to be a team of 4 or 5 guys,
Hmm.
basically working out of a building in Dallas area, and is now one of the many provinces of Bethesda, whatever ZeniMax, which is part of. It's this is like the Penton thing that happened to Windows IT Pro. Like all of a sudden, you're part of some giant conglomerate, and the people making decisions 8 layers above you don't give a crap about your
Right.
history or your accomplishments or the quality of whatever games you've made. They're just looking at spreadsheets,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's a part. This is I the people who argued against Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard didn't have any kind of legal standing, right? There's no actual kind of regulatory legal reason to have said no to this, right? Which we saw, right? The process occurred. But the central problem that those people had, which I do agree with on some level, is like, it's a shame. You lose something, it's a shame. And the problem is, though, that it's not like we break the thing up and id Software is its own thing again, and Bethesda is its own thing again, or whatever, like how you split that thing up. Like, those things don't survive either, right? Those companies don't have the resources now to make the games that you have to make now to survive. And it's this kind of horrible cycle. It's not like there's an answer. That's
right.
kind of the problem, So I don't know. I always say this. I don't know. I don't know anything. That's my problem. That's everyone's problem.
Well, time will be the true arbiter here. Things will shake out over the next 12 months. I don't know, Microsoft's got a big game launch, Hellblade 2, in 2 weeks or something like that.
Yep.
If that goes sideways...
Well, yeah, Microsoft has a big game launch every 2 weeks now, doesn't it?
That was the dream.
Technically. But here we are. I'm not going to go look. It doesn't matter. But we're, 9 days off of the beginning of the month, and they announced their first slate of Xbox Game Pass titles for the first half of May. 4 games. None of them Activision Blizzard. 4? I'm paying $16 a month for this thing. Come on. Like, what's the point? They don't even deliver on the point, let alone figure out whatever strategy, I don't know. It's hard. I feel very strongly that Phil Spencer is like a great guy, loves gaming, and broadly, right? Is not just pro Microsoft nut job. It's not him. I don't know that it's anybody. I don't know that there's any answer. I don't know if they can't sell Xbox hardware, which they can't, you either kill the business, you spin it off, or you do something different. And they've chosen to go for it. And on some level, as an Xbox fan, you have to appreciate that. Like, could not have invested more in this business. Could not have. No one could have.
Right. But they can't operate at a loss, and they can't diminish margins. That's a company mandate. And so...
Yep.
So anyways, what iPad did you buy?
I didn't buy any iPad.
Wow.
I have
You think you know a guy.
Well, no, I will not claim that I did not stare at an apple.com webpage for several hours over the past couple of days. I mean, I absolutely did go back and forth. I have considered everything. So I have a 4th generation iPad Air, which is a product that shouldn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. We have these normal iPads that are 9.7 inches that have that design, that are inexpensive. We have an iPad mini, which is, those two things make sense to me. An iPad Pro of whatever size makes some sense if you stop constraining what iPad OS can do, and they just won't do that, and that makes me crazy. But now they have an iPad Air in 2 sizes in the middle for some reason, and they have all these contradictory hardware compatibility things between keyboards and pens, and they've complicated the product line by having different cores and different versions of the product, which they don't really talk about too much. You get different amounts of RAM, and it's become this convoluted grab bag of nonsense. And unfortunately for the rest of the planet, it's not like there's another tablet that makes any sense at all. So this is what we're kind of stuck with this system. So my iPad's getting a little long in the tooth, but if I had to, like if it died today, I just use it for reading and occasionally for watching movies on planes and stuff. So I would just buy like a base iPad, $349. It'd be fine. Maybe an iPad mini. Like I know they're probably going to upgrade that this year, and at that time, maybe if I make it that long, maybe I'll look at that. Go a little lighter, smaller, but
yeah. I wish the Pro would let you run Parallels. Let's see.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I wish the Pro would let you do, because I wrote about this the other day. I think our Apple, through some strategy, something, decided that it's the Xbox thing. They're going to eat into the margins over here on the Mac, and they don't want to do that. But they before Steve Jobs died, it was post PC, post PC, post PC, and now it's like, we have post PC, we also have PC. They kind of let that thing persist. I think the Mac could have become a workstation and might have disappeared over time if they had just let the iPad Pro stretch. Remember when the iPad ran what they called iOS for a long time, and then they made iPad OS, and I thought, here we go, they're gonna diverge, but they didn't. They're just the same thing. And obviously there are some iPad specific features in iPad OS, but I don't even know why they call it something different. It's stupid. Like it's just the same thing. And to me, the iPad OS should be the thing that the Pro runs, and it should be. I'm not saying it has to run Mac apps or anything like that, but I mean, they just don't put the capabilities in the system to have sophisticated multitasking or window management or whatever it is. That it's remember we had WinRT and the Metro stuff, and it was like I used to talk about like density of commands. Like you could have like this app bar that was like the stupid big thing with big round buttons. And it's like, guys, we can't make Office with this thing. It's not going to work. And I know there are some pro apps, and I just introduced some more pro apps and all that kind of stuff. But and I appreciate the fact that things are different. But we in that space, but we have traditional productivity tasks, word processing, spreadsheets, right? That these devices could handle wonderfully, and do. I mean, to some degree, right? But there's no file system integration. You can't go in there and say, I'm going to put Google Drive or OneDrive on the in the file system and sync and have my stuff offline and do all. It's all locked in like nonsense, and it's just artificially limited. And until and unless that changes, like an iPad Pro is just an expensive waste of money to me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost pulled the trigger on I looked at like Apple's, like even my iPad, like if I wanted to buy Apple's Magic Keyboard for this thing, how much do you think that thing costs? Could you guess?
99.
This thing is $300.
Whoa.
Yeah. So there's a Logitech Folio something that is reasonable. Actually, right now you could buy it for like $90. It's on sale. And that thing, it's still sitting there but not because I think I would ever switch to it or use it for anything, but just to kind of reacquaint myself with that. But I'm like, you know what? I have Bluetooth keyboards. I can look at this right now without having to spend any money. So I already know I'm not going to use it. Like it's not there. It could be. That's the problem.
I think this computer that I'm recording on is installing a Windows update, and I'm not even joking. Your video was a little choppy. Someone's going to write in and say, wow, the Paul's video is real choppy. It's not Paul's video. I'm guessing that this PC is installing an update while we're recording this, because why wouldn't it? It's Xbox's fault.
Nothing works.